Kyle Busch says in his RCR contract that he has an option to maybe run the 2023 Indianapolis 500, and Junior Motorsports has officially announced a driver for the 9 car for 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to go and start our paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump on those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Todd Gilliland's 2022 Long John Silver scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Not as good as the old Long John Silver schemes from the past when Front Row Motorsports used to run those schemes, but really awesome to see that Long John Silver's is back sponsoring in the Cup Series. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Riley Herbst's 2022 Resorts World scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Pretty exciting that we're going to see Riley Herbst have a new paint scheme this weekend in the Xfinity Series. It's always great to see that he has new sponsors, and hopefully he'll do good in this car this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Eric Almirola's 2022 Blue Oval City scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Not as big a fan of this paint scheme as other ones that Eric Almirola has had this year, but hopefully Eric Almirola can have a good run in this car this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ben Rowe's 2022 Ohio Logistics scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Excited to see Ohio Logistics is sponsored Ben Rose, and hopefully Ben Rose will have a good run later this evening in the Camp World Truck Series. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chase Purdy's 2022 Gunema Toyota Pet scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of this paint scheme. I think some of the Hattori schemes have been good. This one is not one of those I'm not a big fan of. Hopefully Chase Purdy, though, will have a good run this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is BJ McLeod's 2022 Malco scheme that we're going to see. I'm not sure where, but he'll have his car at some point for the remainder of the season. Pretty good to see that Malco's partnering up with BJ McLeod. I actually like this paint scheme a lot. The colors look really good on it. And hopefully BJ will have a good run in this car. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Jesse Little's 2022 David's Electric scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend in the Truck Series race at Bristol. We got more news around Jesse Little to talk about later, by the way. This scheme looks very similar to other Young's Motorsports schemes. Hopefully he has a good run on the racetrack this weekend at Bristol. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Parker Kligerman's 2022 Lux Pinto Bean scheme that we're going to see this weekend at Bristol in the Truck Series race. Really excited to see that Parker Kligerman has Lux Pinto Beans back on the car. I think this paint scheme is absolutely incredible, absolutely solid, and I'm looking forward to see on the racetrack tonight in the Truck Series race. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Daniel Hemmer's 2022 First Bank of America scheme they'll be seeing in a couple weeks at Talladega Super Speedway. I absolutely love this paint scheme. The blue, the red number, everything works really awesome on this car, and I'm looking forward to see on the racetrack at Talladega Super Speedway. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Seven Parsons' 2022 Pursuit Church Sokol scheme that we're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Pretty excited to see the Sokols once again work with Stephen Parsons. They've been a pretty loyal sponsor, Stephen, and hopefully Stephen will have a good run in this car at Bristol tomorrow night. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is AJ Allmendinger's 2022 Barger Precast scheme that we're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Great that AJ has a new partner. I think colors look really awesome on this car, and hopefully AJ will have a good run this weekend in that car. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2022 Kroger Thomas scheme that we're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol. Honestly, some of the schemes that JTG's had are good, some have been bad. I'm not really sure what to think about a scheme, if this is good or bad, but it was really exciting to see that Thomas, if it was once again partnering up with Kroger this weekend. And now we're going to head jump on to the next paint scheme as we're talking about Bubba Wallace's 2022 Moneyline scheme with that he'll be driving the number 45 car. This is very similar to the one he ran at the throwback race. The only difference is the 45. I think there's not much to say other than the fact that Bubba Wallace has Moneyline on the car once again. Pretty exciting for sure. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is BJ McLeod's 2022 Down and Dirty Outdoor scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Bristol in the Cup race. Love this paint scheme. Colors are great. Hopefully BJ will have a really strong run in this car this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're going to talk about the Bristol purse money for this weekend. So every single week, of course, for every race takes place, Bob Pockers releases the purses for the week, and this is the purse money. So for the Cup Series race, it includes all the charter payouts and everything. It's $8,338,394. For the Xfinity Series, it's $1,567,510. And for the Truck Series, it's $703,945. A little bit low on the Truck Series payouts for sure. Xfinity's got some decent money, and Cup is a little bit more than everything else. But again, this all comes down with the charter money, but the unchartered teams are not going to get as much of the money. So that's the purse money for this weekend going into the weekend at Bristol that starts tomorrow. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about iRacing. As it was announced yesterday that the Coca-Cola iRacing Series will be, for the first time in the series history, it will be in person live at the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte. It will take place on October the 25th. Very excited to see the season finale for the Coca-Cola iRacing Series is going to be taking place live in person. I wonder how many people are going to show up to that. Sometimes these live events don't tend to get a lot of people, but you do have a lot of NASCAR fans who probably are going to show up, especially the ones that are in the Charlotte area. So really exciting for sure that they're bringing that in person, and really looking forward to that. Glad to see that they're bringing that in person. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Jesse Little. Jesse Little basically announced earlier this evening that he is going to be retiring from racing after this weekend's Truck Series race at Bristol Motor Speedway. He'll be taking more of an advisor role, I believe, in the Young's Motorsports organization, taking a higher up role in the organization, and we're moving away from racing. Jesse Little has been racing since around 2015 or 2016 in the Camping World Truck Series, and it is very disappointing to see that he is retiring. And he's had a pretty solid career throughout his career. He's had some top 10s. He drove for his family's organization in the Camping World Truck Series and had a lot of success in this series as well, but also some non-success in this series due to lack of funding. And he never really got that great opportunity to show his talent. But he can say one thing is that he's made a Cup start, which a lot of drivers cannot say that they've made Cup starts. So it's really exciting to see. Well, it's not exciting to see that he is retiring, but hopefully whatever he does, he ends up doing really good with it. And it's a shame that he is retiring, but it is what it is. And congratulations, whatever opportunity he has, and good luck to him going into the future. Hopefully he gets a really good opportunity. Whatever he's got going on, it's really good for him. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, is we're going to talk about North Wilkesboro. Now, it was reported a couple days ago on Monday afternoon that NCDOT says that there will not be enough time to build new interchanges and other parts for the North Wilkesboro Speedway. Why is this being talked about? Well, one of the big reasons why this has been brought up into the conversations is because of all the changes and how many people are going to be at North Wilkesboro. One of the big things that has been a major concern for North Wilkesboro is the potential of some major traffic concerns. So you have those issues where you could have a lot of traffic problems. You could end up having a very similar situation what happened in 2011 at Kentucky, or it would happen in 2021 at Nashville. And honestly, you don't want to have those issues, but I understand where they're coming from and saying it's going to be very difficult for them to get everything set up. It's understandable why they're having issues getting things figured out right there, and it's really going to be difficult, especially since North Wilkesboro is going to be taking place in about 8 months from now. It's going to be very difficult for them to get these interchanges made. It takes time for these things to happen. I know people want that stuff quicker so we can get the traffic issues. I think that they're going to have to be really creative getting people in. You're going to need shuttle buses them on and charter buses them on other things to get people shuttled into North Wilkesboro to help with the traffic concerns. So hopefully that's one thing they're working on. They're probably already working on those plans and logistics going into the future for North Wilkesboro next year. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Chad Norris. As it was announced on Tuesday that Chad Norris is going to be crew chiefing for Ty Dillon for the remainder of the 2022 season. Now, we already know at this point that Ty Dillon will not be returning to Petty GMS, but he will have his crew chief, Chad Norris, for the rest of the season. Chad Norris, I'm not sure how much experience he has had as a crew chief, but it's really cool that he's getting an opportunity to crew chief, and I'm very intrigued to see what Chad Norris can do as a crew chief. I think he's been working as an engineer at Petty GMS Motorsports, if I'm not mistaken, and honestly, if he's the one doing the engineering for the team like Eric Jones's team, honestly, I think this is a really good move to bring him up in the crew chiefing side of things. Hopefully, though, we'll see him do really good at a crew chief for Ty Dillon. Hopefully, Ty Dillon will have a good opportunity to do really well at this organization. Well, not Ty Dillon, but hopefully he can do a good job as a crew chief for Ty Dillon. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Bobby McCarty. As Bobby McCarty is going to drive the 6 for JD Motorsports this weekend at Bristol. This will be Bobby McCarty's second or third career NASCAR Xfinity Series start, and like I said, he's in the 6 for JD Motorsports. Originally, Ryan Vargas was supposed to be in this car, but Ryan will not be in this car this weekend. The next race Ryan will be in, I believe, is for the opener at Texas Motor Speedway. Bobby McCarty's been a driver who has been racing in the Wheel and Modified Tour, is racing in late model as well down south, and has had quite a bit of success. I think he could do decent in this car. I think he's got a good opportunity to get a top 25 maybe perhaps and help JD Motorsports any owners points. Hope he's able to do that and get this team some good runs this weekend. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brad Perez. As Brad Perez is going to drive the 35 for Emerald Gase Motorsports in a couple weekends at the Charlotte Roval. This will be Brad Perez's third or fourth NASCAR start in NASCAR's top-tier divisions, and it's going to be a second or third opportunity to make a race. Now, he did make the start a couple weeks ago at Watkins Glen, but he's getting another opportunity to drive for Emerald Gase Motorsports. This is a great opportunity. Brad Perez, I think, is a very underrated driver. The guy has worked really hard to get these opportunities, and he's got great sponsorship and great backing helping him. So I think Brad Perez will do good to get in the field. I think this car has enough owners points to make the show. And I think Brad Perez will do really, really well with Emerald Gase Motorsports at the Roval. If he makes the show, I think he's got a shot for a top 20 or a top 25. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brandon Brown. As Brandon Brown is going to drive the 5 for BJ McLeod Motorsports this weekend at Bristol. This will be Brandon Brown's second or third start in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with the BJ McLeod Motorsports organization. The reason being he's in this car and not his own car is because Chris Wright's in there pretty much for the rest of the season due to sponsorship and funding issues for the Brandon-built Motorsports organization. Well, that's why he's been in the 5 car a lot of times here recently. I think Brandon Brown's a very underrated driver. I think he will get the best out of that equipment, and I think Brandon Brown will do really, really good here this weekend at Bristol. I think he'll get that car potentially a top 20 run because BJ McLeod Motorsports, when you get a good driver in it, it can do really, really good. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brennan Poole. As Brennan Poole is going to drive the 52 for Jimmy Means Racing this weekend at Bristol. This will be the first time that Jimmy Means Racing has entered a Cup Series race, I think, since like the 3rd or 4th race of the season. So it's been a while since they've entered. But they've got a really good driver getting behind the wheel of this car. If there's anyone that really can help you qualify your way into a race, it's Brennan Poole. Brennan Poole's been one of the qualifying wizards this year. And under funding equipment, he's helped Glory to God Racing Trucks and Mike Harmon Racing get their team into the field. So I think there's anyone that can get Jimmy Means Racing into the show. I think that Brennan Poole is going to be that driver. I know they had Harrison Rose try to get in earlier this year. That did not end up working, so they've been out going back to the drawing board. It's good to see that the Brennan Poole is getting their opportunity, and hopefully he can make the field with the team. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chris Hacker, Dawson Cram. As Dawson Cram is going to drive the 47 for Mike Harmon Racing this weekend at Bristol. Dawson Cram made his return to the NASCAR Xfinity Series a couple weekends ago and now is back in the Xfinity Series field trying to make the show once again with Mike Harmon Racing. Not sure how Dawson's going to do. I think Dawson's a very decent driver, but I'm not really sure he's going to have a lot of great performances in that 47 car. I don't think he's going to do well. I think he's good, but at the 47 car, they're going to have a hard time finishing the race if he even makes the show, and there's 3 going home. So I think it's going to be really tough for Dawson to make the show. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Leland Honeyman. As Leland Honeyman is going to drive the 20 for Young's Motorsports this weekend at Bristol. Leland Honeyman, I believe, has made 1 or 2 Camp World Truck Series starts for Young's Motorsports this year. He is a very underrated and a very talented driver. He has taken Young's Motorsports equipment in the NASCAR and in ARCA and has done really, really well in ARCA in those select starts and in running full time this year. So I think if there's anyone that really can get it done behind the wheel and show what he's got and able to get done, I think Leland is your guy. I think Leland will have a really surprisingly good run, and I think he's got a shot at potentially a top 20 run this weekend, even top 15 perhaps this weekend at Bristol. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chris Hacker. As Chris Hacker is going to drive the 33 for the Raymond Brothers Racing Organization this weekend at Bristol. This will be Chris Hacker's, I think, 4th or 5th start with the Raymond Brothers Racing Organization. I think Chris Hacker's a decent driver. He's not a fantastic driver, but he did have that really impressive run in the 41 truck early last year. Had some pretty decent runs and was actually getting some top 20 times in laps at Gateway last year. But it really hasn't been substantial really since then. Still, though, I really hope he does have a good run. Chris Hacker does, and hopefully he has a good run in that 33 truck this weekend at Bristol if he's able to make the show. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about BJ McLeod. As it was announced earlier today that BJ McLeod is going to be substituting for Matt Mills this weekend at Bristol. This will be the second straight race that Matt Mills has set out due to getting really, really sick. I think he's had some complications or some major sickness that's been going on with him, and he's out once again. So BJ, the team owner, is going to be in the 78 car for his own organization. I think BJ will do solid. I'm wishing a speedy recovery for Matt Mills, but I think BJ will do very, very solid in this car. He seems to perform really good on the short tracks, and I think BJ will be able to do that. So, really excited to see that BJ is getting an opportunity and wishing a healthy and a speedy recovery for Matt Mills out here so he can get back behind the wheel and finish the season in a 78 car. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Noah Gragson. As Noah Gragson is going to drive a 62 for Busch Motorsports once again at Talladega. This is going to be the last time that Busch Motorsports is going to be entering races here because they're only going to be entering all the Super Speedway races, and of course, there's only there's only four Super Speedway races on the schedule, so that's why this is going to be his last start in the car. The last time Noah Gragson ran, of course, he ran that really special Wendy scheme. Hopefully, they bring that Wendy scheme back at Talladega. I think it would be really exciting if they did bring that back for Noah Gragson. It's a good-looking scheme, and hopefully Ryan Williams is watching my videos, and hopefully they do decide to have that for Noah Gragson. I think it would be really exciting if they did go ahead and bring that back, to be perfectly honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about NY Racing. Now, Greg Biffle was on the most recent Dale Jr. Dow, and Dustin Albino, before the episode came out, he did a special report on Greg Biffle. And according to Dustin Albino, NY Racing is trying to potentially race at Texas Motor Speedway, the next race for Cup, and also potentially race at Talladega, and they're hoping to have Greg Biffle back behind the wheel. NY Racing has entered 5 races so far in 2022, but the last time he entered a race was Talladega, and it's been unclear what's been going on with NY Racing. There have been some rumors of maybe 3F Racing have bought up all the parts and pieces for NY Racing, but it sounds like from people that work with John Cohan, who is the owner of the team, it sounds like it's very likely that NY Racing is going to potentially try to enter an upcoming race here in the near future. 2 more races with Greg Biffle. Honestly, I do hope they enter because the more cars they can show up, the better. But they also have had some really awesome looking paint schemes that have been out on the racetrack. I think NY Racing's had some great looking and paint schemes, and I think it would be pretty fun for sure if they could try to come back and basically show up once again. So hopefully NY Racing decides to come back to the track with Greg Biffle. I think it would be exciting. It'd be cool if they end up actually coming back and running full time, but I don't know if they're going to, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But it's good to see that they're looking to potentially make a return to NASCAR in the near future, in my honest opinion. Now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Ford. As earlier this evening, Ford officially revealed their full lineup for all of their cars they're going to be racing in their official 2024 Ford Mustang, and they also revealed the Cup Series car that's going to be running in 2024. They'll be keeping the old body they've been using for the last few years for 2023, and they'll be switching over to this new body in 2024. This is really, really exciting news for the Ford camp for sure. I'm really excited to see that Ford's got a new body that basically is coming out for the future. I think it looks absolutely incredible. Looks absolutely really, really solid. The look of it, and it's not, there might be some changes and technical changes to it, but it probably have to be some aerodynamic changes. But overall, in my opinion, I think it does look really, really exciting. Looks amazing, and I'm excited to see that that's going to be the new body. I think it looks great, and it looks really, really awesome, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Kansas TV ratings from the past weekend. So according to Cindy again, who's someone who does a lot of really good data in regards to the TV ratings, she reported a couple days ago that the Kansas TV ratings was 1.878 million viewers on USA Network. Now, those rating numbers are not very good, but there are a couple factors that need to be kept in mind. Number one, it was opening day for the NFL. So a lot of people are probably not going to be watching NASCAR. They're probably going to focus on NFL, and a lot of teams basically for opening day, that's what they're going to be focusing on. The other thing that they're going to be focusing on is the IndyCar Championship. For whatever reason, IndyCar decided to have the championship race on the same day as the Cup Series playoff race. That does not make any sense to me. You should not be having competition right there. And IndyCar should have had their season a week longer and then have their championship decided on the Sunday after the Bristol race. That's when they should have gone ahead and decided. So it could have benefited both networks because it's probably terrible and really bad ratings as well. It is a shame it didn't get 2 million viewers, but again, those factors did play a major role into those issues and some things that they do long-term need to go ahead and fix going into the future. In my honest opinion, they do need to stop basically having to go and compete against each other, and instead, they need to work together, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Noah Gragson. Now, Noah Gragson was the guest on the Door Bumper Clear podcast, and he went in and talked about next-gen safety on the podcast. He first talked about the fact that basically in the Xfinity Series cars, you're going to full 100%. With the Cup Series cars, you're going about 90% because you're really, really worried that you're going to get really, really hard with a next-gen car. Keep in mind, Noah Gragson is only 24 or 25 years old. He is really, really young, and he's already talking about stuff like this. And he's going to be going full-time Cup racing next year, so he's a little concerned. He also kind of went in depth and talked about the issues with the belts and when he was involved in the wreck at Atlanta earlier this year at the beginning of the year, when he got involved and got into the outside wall and really got a ton of damage on his body. And he basically said the belts would, I think, afford like 5 or 6 inches, and with that really scary accident. NASCAR is going to have a lot of things that they're definitely going to work on for sure when it comes to the next-gen safety, and they do have a lot of work to do on this car. We've talked a lot about the next-gen safety, and they've done some things on the safety. Of course, they fixed some of the issues with the rocker box. There was a lot of rocker boxes basically catching on fire. They put exhaust panel down. They made more cars catching on fire, and NASCAR initiated some basic things to try to prevent a lot of these fires from happening. It's not going to completely prevent them, but try to help prevent some of these fires from happening. So whatever they're doing, they need to work on because the safety issues are a major factor. Drivers have been complaining. Ryan Blaney, Joe Logano, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. We've had more drivers complaining about safety's car all throughout this year, and NASCAR should be listening to the drivers. Even guys like Noah Gragson, who are really, really young, who are not much older than me, are saying that this car isn't as safe as previous cars, and they need to figure out a way to try to go ahead and fix these cars long-term so we don't have any major long-term problems long-term for the drivers. So whatever they're doing, hopefully they can fix those issues and get to fix some problems here in the future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now, I did not note this during the schedule announcement, but Atlanta Motor Speedway basically revealed a couple hours after I recorded that video that they're going to be basically having 2 400-mile races in 2023. They've had one 500-mile race and one 400-mile race the last couple years, but now both races are going to be 400-mile races. The other big thing is that the summer race is going to be a night race. So while we're losing Martinsville as a night race, we're going to be gaining a night race for a summer night race. Both the changes is what fans have been wanting, and both the changes, in my opinion, are really, really good. First of all, the 500-mile race earlier this year in 2022, race was not as good as the second race was. I think the earlier race should have been 400 miles, and I'm really glad they're doing that. The other thing, a summer night race, yes, 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 absolutely. That has been needing to happen, and having it a night race makes a lot of sense. The reason attendance was terrible for the second race compared to the first race is the extreme heat, and people were saying that they need to make this a night race. I think it will not only help attendance, but I think it will create a lot of electricity and a lot of excitement for a Sunday night race as well. You're going to have a lot of electricity and a lot of excitement. So I think overall it's a really, really good change, a change that has been needed to be made. And in my opinion, I think it's absolutely a fantastic and a great change. Absolutely excited to see this change for sure. And it is a very good change, in my opinion, that they went ahead and decided to make it a night race, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about upcoming future schedules. Now, Ben Kenny was on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio earlier today, and he talked to Dave Moody, and they talked about the future of upcoming schedules. He says when it comes to Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval that they are in consideration long-term to return to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval because people have been begging for them to return to Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval. Earlier this year, we talked about during, I think, Indy weekend that there have been some conversations. Maybe they were going to go back to the Oval in 2023, but that's not going to be the case in 2023. They're going to be being on the road course. But we heard from, I believe it was Doug Bowles, talked about how basically there's some talk they could alter starting in 2024, and Ben Kennedy agrees that they could do that. Another thing I didn't see a lot of people talk about is the fact that they did not go international. There have been a little bit of talk maybe they were going to go international this year, but that is not going to be the case and not going to be happening this year. But that's something that's being talked about is maybe trying to expand up to Canada and going down to Mexico, but they've had some issues when it comes to travel. In my honest opinion, when it comes to Canada and Mexico, you've got tracks up in Canada. You've got Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, you name it. Troy Revere, the Toronto Street Circuit. You've got a lot of tracks you can go up there in Canada. Mexico, the Autodromo Fernando Rodriguez track, Mexico City. There's a lot of big things that NASCAR can do if they want to with the upcoming schedule that is going to end up being released in the long-term future. And whatever NASCAR is going to decide to do, I hope whatever they decide to do, the changes that they decide to do end up being really, really good changes for the long-term future. And in my opinion, obviously, whatever they decide to do is great. I would love for them to expand to different countries because I think it would benefit everybody, and it would be pretty good, in my opinion, if they decided to go ahead and expand to different countries, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Felix Rosenqvist. As it was announced that Felix Rosenqvist is going to be returning the Aaron McLaren SP in 2023. There have been rumors that he was potentially going to be leaving Aaron McLaren SP. He said he had signed a contract extension. Then there was talk from some people in the industry that he was going to be leaving IndyCar. And now it's confirmed they'll be returning to Aaron McLaren SP in a third Aaron McLaren SP. I don't know if it'll be the 7 or basically the 66 car that's been run a couple times with Aaron McLaren SP. But he will be driving for Aaron McLaren SP once again in 2023. The reason is he's been a really good driver. He finished top 10 in points. He's not as good as Pat O'Ward, but Felix Rosenqvist is a very solid and a really good driver. And you look what he's been able to accomplish. He could have won a couple races here in IndyCar, was an outside championship threat in the IndyCar Championship. And I think with the combination of Pat O'Ward, Alexander Rossi, and Felix Rosenqvist all being on the same organization, I think the team is really going to benefit from the success that I think that they're going to end up happening. So I think this is a really awesome move that he's coming back. We thought maybe he'd go into Formula E. We maybe thought maybe in some ways he'd go to Formula 1, but with Oscar Piastri going to Formula 1 to drive a second McLaren car, and with court cases and stuff that we're going to get into here in just a little bit, I think it is a great decision that they've gone ahead and re-signed Felix Rosenqvist for 2023. It's a good decision, and it'll keep that friendship between Pat O'Ward and Felix Rosenqvist working together. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Alex Palou. As after all the court cases and all the issues in court that have been going on, it is officially confirmed today that Alex Palou is officially, after all the controversy, he is returning to Chip Ganassi Racing in 2023, and he'll be driving the number 10 car. In composition, he will be able to test the McLaren F1 car, the FP35 car, whatever the cars they have in Formula 1 McLaren does. He will be able to test that. After all this work, we all thought that he would not be returning to Chip Ganassi Racing, and we all thought that he'd be going to McLaren for Formula 1 or Formula E or going where Rosenqvist is going. He's staying at Chip Ganassi Racing and staying put for 2023. This is absolutely huge in so many ways for Alex Palou. Because Alex Palou, yes, he's had a little bit of distractions here when it comes to the court cases, when it comes to the contract talks, what you find online. Alex Palou has somewhat kept his composure, at least when it comes to the racing. And I think one of the biggest reasons why things change is after that extremely dominant performance that he had at Laguna Seca. He won that race by half a minute. One of the most dominant performances we've seen in recent IndyCar history. The most dominant for sure since Alexander Rossi's dominant win in 2019 at Road America. That was an extremely dominant win for Alex Palou. And it's really crazy. Like I said, we all thought that he'd be gone, but I think everything benefits. Rosenqvist goes back to Aaron McLaren SP, and you've got Palou returning to Chip Ganassi Racing, which, like I said, I think will benefit everybody in general. So I'm very excited to see that Palou's coming back. I know that people were like, oh, who's going to go to the 10 car? Who knew? Maybe Rinus VK would have gone there if Palou wasn't returning. Maybe they could have gotten a young driver with Dave Malukas, but Malukas is staying with HMD next year with Dale Coyne Racing. It really is very exciting, though, that he is coming back to the team next year, especially after all the court cases and all the issues there. It's good to see that he is officially coming back to the team next year. It's a really great move, in my opinion, and very exciting to see that he will be back with the team next year in 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Race Team Alliance. Now, it was reported on Monday afternoon by Adam Stern that it was reported by him that NASCAR and Race Team Alliance have both retained media consultants for the sport's upcoming TV talks. There's also going to be a third group. I can't remember exactly which group name is, but they're going to have a third group that's going to also be involved with the consulting to try to find the upcoming TV talks. This is a great move, in my opinion, for the teams and the owners to get involved. One of the things when it comes to the TV deal, the tracks get 65% of the TV revenue. The teams and drivers get 25%, and the ownership in NASCAR gets 10%. The team and owners really, really want a bigger ownership piece of the pie, and there's big reasons for that. Number one, tracks should not get 65% of the TV revenue when it comes to the next TV deal. They need to basically figure out a way to kind of distribute that pie a little bit more. But also, the teams will be able to basically spend less, and they can end up trying to hire a lot of better talent and not worry about the guys that are paid drivers. If they've got a lot of money coming their way, more money coming their way from a TV deal, they're probably going to have a major opportunity to be able to acquire the drivers that they're going to want. And you can bring really good talent in and not rely on sponsorship as much. I think that's one of the things we talked about when it came to Daniel Suarez, and why Daniel Suarez, he basically, only signed a one-year extension because they think that he's going to get more money in the long-term future for his contracts. So I think overall that this is a really, really strong and a really, really positive move in a direction for the TV deal. It's very likely next year a TV deal is going to get signed. We're not going to know 2024. We're more than likely going to know sometime next year what the TV deal is looking like. Steve Phelps has basically said that those negotiations are probably going to heat up in 2023, and it will probably get a deal by the end of 2023. This is probably the biggest thing we'll be watching over the next few months, because this is the biggest thing I'm still waiting on and holding up when it comes to the silly season. So it is exciting for sure that we've got someone really getting involved to try to figure out these issues and get things figured out going for the long term, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Austin Dillon. As Austin Dillon was speaking to the media during the conference for Kyle Busch going to Rich Schultz Racing for 2023, and Austin Dillon told the media that he has a contract with RCR to continue driving the 3-car for Rich Schultz Racing through the 2025 season. Now, he was also asked by the media as he had considerations of maybe trying to take an ownership role in the long-term future. And he also said that that could be a possibility long-term. He says, you don't know. That could also be an option and a possibility for Austin Dillon in the long term. I know a lot of people give Austin Dillon a lot of crap because Austin Dillon hasn't been as good at drivers like Tyler Reddick this year. But Austin Dillon deserves to be in that 3-car. I know that he is a grandson of Richard Schultz, but he's won an Xfinity Series championship, he's won a Truck Series championship, and he's won 4 Cup races. And there's only like 100 drivers that have gone on and won 4 Cup races in their career. Many drivers who are in the field right now have not gone and say this. In fact, I think there's only 8 or 9 drivers that are full-time in Cup right now that have more wins than Austin Dillon currently at the moment right now. So there's not a lot of drivers that have gone out and won. So that's why he's still driving the car. And Austin Dillon is a driver I feel like could be like a Mark Truex Jr. long term. He could be a driver that really breaks out in a later portion of the career. A driver was really good in Xfinity and didn't do great in the beginning in his Cup Series career, but eventually flourished. I think Austin Dillon could be someone that heads in that direction. And with Kyle Busch coming over to RCR, I think both him and Kyle are going to perform at a really, really strong level. I'm really excited to see what Austin Dillon could do long term, by the way, with the team, to see if he continue his really good performances. He's about 31, 32, and I think he'll get a contract extension regardless in the future. But in my opinion, it's good to see that he's got a contract through 2025, because especially having those family ties, it makes a lot of sense that he has a contract with the team. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Corey Heim, John Nemechek, and other drivers in the TRD family. Because last night or a couple of nights ago, when an announcement came out on Tuesday, David Wilson was on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. And he basically confirmed that drivers like Corey Heim and John Nemechek, who are part of the TRD family, They will not be back at Kyle Busch Motorsports in 2023, and they will be staying in the Toyota pipeline. There's a big reason why, because like I said, Kyle Busch is team KBM, is going to Chevy because Kyle Busch is going to Richard Childress Racing in 2023, which means that a lot of drivers that are part of the TR development program, Corey Heim, John Hunter Nemechek, and even Sammy Smith, who drives for the ARCA program, is more than likely going to be out. Now, there is potential possibility that some of these guys can end up in the Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series program, because we'll talk about why here in a later portion of today's episode. But you think about TRD. I think TRD long-term is going to be in a lot of trouble. I think right now they're okay, because you're going to have some moves that are going to be happening in Xfinity, and there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff that is happening in the silly season. But Toyota long-term could end up being in a lot of trouble. Now, if 2311 does end up expanding, if Sam Hunt Racing does expand, because I think Sam Hunt could be another option for some of these guys to go to since they are TRD drivers. Maybe they could go to maybe Hattori Racing if Hattori Racing does decide to expand. They've been teasing maybe some big announcements that could be happening there. And then, of course, you have the possible options where you could bring a team from a market like Venturini Motorsports up. That could be an option that they go up. Regardless, though, there are going to be some moves that are going to be happening. And I think it's going to be a lot of crazy and really major moves that are going to be happening here in the future for all these drivers. And some big moves are expected to happen really, really soon here in the future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jeremy Clements and Jeremy Clements Racing. As remember we talked about Jeremy Clements Racing's win did not count toward making the playoffs because they failed inspection after they went to the R&D Center. Well, a couple days ago, things have changed. After 10 days, Jeremy Clements Racing appealed their penalties, and they have won their appeal. That's right. Steve Carnes, who's working with team in the Xfinity Series, has revealed that Jeremy Clements and Jeremy Clements Racing have officially won the appeal that they have gotten, and they are now officially back in the playoffs. The win that they got in Daytona is now a win that officially counts to making the playoffs. What are the repercussions from this, and what are the things that are going to change? Number one, this means that Landon Cassill is now on the cutoff line, and Ryan Sieg and Sheldon Creed are back below the playoffs. Ryan Sieg had been in by, I think, about 19 points over Sheldon Creed. That number has decreased to be 19 points, well, 13 points above. Now he's 19 points below, and Sheldon Creed is 32 points below the cutoff line, meaning Ryan Sieg went from basically being in to now being pretty much almost in a must-win situation. He's now already in a must-win situation. I think this is a major, major window. They've been able to go out there and win their appeal. I think this is really good to see that they've basically been able to go out there and win the appeal, because for a small team like that, who really don't think really ended up cheating, I think it's good to see that a team like that won their appeal, because normally, even for the small teams, they don't normally win. There's been only like 15 times in the history of the Xfinity Series or NASCAR in general that we've seen a team winner appeal, because usually when NASCAR basically disqualifies you or takes away the winner, basically makes it like an encumbered win, you usually don't end up winning those appeals, or you'll be like Matt Kenseth and get your appeal basically rescinded massively like he did in 2013. But still, I think that this is a really, really great and a really, really awesome move long-term for sure. Really good move in my opinion. They've gone ahead and rescinded the penalties for them, and it's very exciting to see. I'm very happy for Jeremy Clements Racing, a small team like that. I'm not as big into the technical side of things, so if people can let me kind of know how they basically didn't get penalized for that, let me know. But really good to see for sure, and very happy to see that Jeremy Clements Racing has been able to win their appeal, in my honest opinion. Now we're going to jump on to the first of three major stories in today's episode, as we got a couple Kyle Busch stories to discuss. The first one to talk about is Kyle Busch, and even if he had the option to drive the 18 car. So, Alan Cavan put out a really good report earlier yesterday, and Kyle Busch said that he was informed that the 18 car was not going to be an option for him a couple months ago. Remember we talked about a few months ago, before all this stuff kind of started breaking, how Kyle Busch was probably going to be out at Joe Gibbs Racing originally before all this RCR stuff came out? Well, this is basically him confirming that those reports from the Door Bumper Clear podcast are basically officially true. And it really kind of tells major details on what is really going on behind the scenes. He kind of says that Toyota really has a lot of stuff that needs to be ironed out. And he said that he was not really part of the big picture to keep driving for Toyota after he was informed that he would not continue driving the 18 car. And what is that major reason? Well, I think the big reason is very, very obvious. Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is the big reason why I don't think Kyle Busch was really part of that future. Ty Gibbs is the son is the grandson of Joe Gibbs, who is the owner of the organization, who is the owner of, obviously, Joe Gibbs Racing. And Ty Gibbs has been really exceptional in the NASCAR Xfinity Series the last couple of years. He got 4 wins last year in the Xfinity Series and has already gotten 5 wins so far and could win more by the conclusion of the season and could win the Xfinity Series championship. Ty Gibbs has also been making select NASCAR Cup Series starts and has been driving the 23 and the 45 for 2311 Racing so far this season and has had some pretty good runs and some not so good runs in those select starts, but he's been getting that Cup Series experience, getting them prepared for next year. Another big reason why I think that Ty Gibbs is going to end up in that 18 car next year is because he's got the sponsorship and funding. Ty Gibbs has been part of the family, Joe Gibbs Racing family, but also he's got the sponsorship and has got the funding as well. And he's going to be $10 million cheaper than Kyle Busch. Now, Toyota apparently, they weren't really trying to really look for sponsorship because it seems like with RCR, they've got sponsorship really lined up for Kyle. Sounds like that basically Joe Gibbs didn't have the sponsorship because Ty Gibbs brings the sponsorship. He's got help from Shriners Children's Hospital. He's got funding from Cub Cadet. He's got funding, of course, from Monster Energy. He's been funding him throughout his entire career. But he has had big sponsorship funding with that. So Kyle Busch was not really part of that major future to keep Joe Gibbs around. But with Kyle Busch leaving, this is going to affect TRD because you look at how many drivers TRD has lost. They've lost Kyle Busch, Joe Logano, Matt Kenseth, technically Carl Edwards, you can technically say him, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, Harrison Burton, Todd Gillen, Haley Deegan technically, Furniture Racing, KBM, Rudy Fugle, a lot of crew chiefs, a lot of drivers. Noah Grayson's another one. They've lost so many drivers in these last 2 years because Toyota, they've got a really good pipeline, don't get me wrong, but they've lost so many drivers and have dropped so many drivers over the years. And, Bill McAnally Racing, Derek Cross, another driver that they lost. And you think about everything that's been going on, and is at this point they lost Kyle Busch? Yes, but they got a driver that I think is going to do really solid. So it's not shocking and surprising that they drop Kyle Busch. He doesn't bring the sponsorship and funding, and the performance hasn't always been there. But I don't know if they try to. Here's the thing. I do think in the beginning they try to help Kyle out. But eventually, after they lost that Oracle sponsorship, they cut his size. Once that Oracle sponsorship dropped, I'm like, it's very unlikely he's going to be back at JGR. And now he's at Rich Schultz Racing in 2023. So hopefully Kyle Busch does good at RCR. And hopefully Joe Gibbs can find a driver. Well, they got the driver. Hopefully they can perform in 2023 with Ty Gibbs, and RCR can do well as well. And now we're going to jump on to the next major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Junior Motorsports. As Junior Motorsports has made their official announcement on who's going to be driving the number 9 car. Last night, they were teasing who's going to be driving the number 9 car, and a lot of theories and rumblings really started coming down. And it was announced today officially that Brandon Jones is going to be jumping away from Joe Gibbs Racing and will be jumping over to Junior Motorsports to drive the number 9 car for the team starting in 2023. That's right, Brandon Jones, who's been driving the 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing, will not be returning to Joe Gibbs Racing, but he instead will moving away from the Toyota family and moving over to drive in the Chevy family, where he initially started, because remember, he originally drove for Richard Childress Racing. Let's talk about this move, because I've seen a lot of mixed reactions to this move. Do I think Brandon Jones is better than Noah Gragson? No, absolutely not. But I think Brandon Jones is a very solid driver. I will admit, when I saw him basically go to Joe Gibbs Racing, I was really, really angry about it. But over the last few years, Brandon Jones has really grown on me. He's a very solid driver. Yes, he brings sponsorship and funding. There's no doubt about it. He's got that backing from Rheem and Menards, because Rheem is a big partner, because his father, I believe, is a big owner and a CEO of Rheem currently at the moment, and the co-founder of Rheem, if I'm not mistaken. You think of what Brandon Jones has done, though, for Joe Gibbs Racing. He's gotten 5 Xfinity Series wins. He had a pretty good win in Martinsville earlier this year. Remember, he had that really impressive win in 2020 where he just beat Kyle Busch straight up. And also their other driver, I believe it was Harrison Burton, straight up as well. He beats a really, really strong and really good talent. He had some finishes, yes, kind of handed to him, but he's also had really, really good runs. For Brandon Jones going into 2023, what are my overall expectations? Well, I don't think Brandon Jones is going to 100% be like when Noah Gragson's done and win 5 races. I do think Brandon Jones is going to get some really strong runs next year. I think he's going to win 2 to 3 races next year. If he's got Luke Lambert next year, unless Gragson brings him up, I do think that we'll see him do well with Luke Lambert, if Luke Lambert's a crew chief. I don't think Jeff Mendering's a bad crew chief, don't get me wrong, but I don't think Jeff Mendering's the greatest crew chief in the world either. So I think that Luke Lamborghino's a better crew chief than Jeff Mendering, and sometimes having a new change of scenery can really, really work out. And another big reason why I think he's moving over to the 9, it's a new, fresh scenery of pace, and he's probably going to be a lifer very similar to Michael Annett, but a better version of Michael Annett. I know that I've been critical on paid drivers in the past, but he's not a bad paid driver, so he's a very solid paid driver. The other big thing to talk about is with Brandon Jones going over to the 9 car for Junior Motorsports, what happens to Joe Gibbs' race team? Because they're going to have a clean house next year because Ty Gibbs, he's going to Cup next year in the 18 more than likely. So what happens to Joe Gibbs Racing? Well, I think Joe Gibbs will have at least 3 cars next year. I think Sammy Smith will jump into the 18 full-time because Sammy Smith, there's a lot of people that even see Latar that think Sammy Smith is going full-time. Sammy's making a lot more starts as of recently, starts that were not even initially on his schedule, and the reason being is because he's probably going full-time next year. Sammy Smith is a very, very talented young driver. He's got a really good shot to win the ARCA East Championship this year. He's already, I think, won an ARCA Championship in some sort of capacity, if I'm not mistaken, and has won some races in ARCA as well with the Kyle Busch Motorsports organization. Toyota really, really likes Sammy Smith, so he'll be in the 18 car next year, and I think he'll do really, really well, but that has not been announced yet. I think the big thing is who's going to get into the 19 next year, because there's a couple drivers who could end up in the 19. You do have Chandler Smith, but Chandler Smith could obviously go over to Kyle Busch Motorsports and stay with them. It's also possible Carson Osmar could go to KBM and drive for them in the Cup, in the Truck Series, in that car. Ty Dillon could, for that matter. You also do have Corey Heim, who could be a possible option to get in there. Corey is a big part of the TRD pipeline, but Corey, I think, would probably need a full year in trucks. I would probably say John Hunter Nemechek is probably going to end up full-time with Joe Gibbs Racing just because he's done really, really good in Xfinity Series when he's driven there for Joe Gibbs Racing, the select starts he's had with JGR. But if Kurt doesn't come back, would we see him go potentially to a 2311 race car? That could be an option. And I do think whatever the third number is, whether that's 20 or 54, I do think that that is probably going to be the car that's the all-star car for all the drivers in the TRD program that are there, like a Ryan Truex, a Trevor Bayne, whoever it is. They'll probably be in that third car. Pretty exciting, though, for sure, with the future Joe Gibbs Racing lies. They got to figure out what they're going to do, but really excited to see what Brandon Jones can do next year with Junior Motorsports. Congratulations on the opportunity, Brandon, and you absolutely deserve this opportunity, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to finally jump onto the final major story of today's episode as we are talking about Kyle Busch. Now, we've talked about Kyle Busch a lot on this channel, a lot of it due to where he was going for 2023. But now we're talking about something that's kind of involved with 2023, but it's more of potential other racing series. Kyle Busch, in the past, over the last years, he has expressed a lot of interest in potentially, maybe, perhaps, racing in the 2023 or few past Indianapolis 500s. Back in 2017, Kyle Busch actually had offered to go to Team Penske and race Indy 500 for the team, but Joe Gibbs Racing and Joe Gibbs said, no, you cannot do that. He was going to have an opportunity maybe to race it this year, but he did not budge and didn't have a sponsorship file ready to go to run in 2021 or 2022. Well, Kyle Busch said during the media center, during the media availabilities, that in his contract with Richard Childress Racing, he has an opportunity to potentially race with any team that is a Chevy back team in the Indianapolis 500. Not only that, but Will Power says that he would love to see Kyle Busch come over and race in the Indianapolis 500 in 2023 as well. If that option comes available, I think he said that on SiriusXM NASCAR radio today. He said, if there's anybody in the Cup field I want, it's Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is obviously one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time, the winningest active Cup Series driver, and now he can potentially go to any Chevy team he wants to. For me, I would love to see both Kyles race. I think both Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch do need to race next year. But now that begs the question, what teams could Kyle Busch end up driving for in 2023 if he is to run the Indy 500? Because if he's going to run the Indy 500, he's got to start making a decision really, really soon. There's a lot of testing you're going to have to do. There's a lot of preparation you're going to have to do. Let's start off with Team Penske. This could be a possible option for him. They're going to have, I think, 2 or 3 cars next year. They may have a 4th car that could be running the Indy 500 unless Prada Autosport decides to go away from work with Ed Carpenter Racing, going back to work with Penske. I would think they'll have 3 cars, but I do think that 4th car could be reserved for another driver named Kyle Larson. That could be who could be the car driver of that fourth car. Then you think about Aaron McLaren SP, and this is one that is very, very likely. Zach Brown has said they're maybe looking at adding a fourth car for the Indy 500, but he's not official if they're going to. They're not going to add that fourth car full time, but they are talking about maybe running a fourth car in the Indianapolis 500. You think about Aaron McLaren SP. They're a really good team in IndyCar. They've won race in IndyCar. They've been championship contenders in IndyCar, and they've raced in Indianapolis 500 with drivers like Juan Pablo Montoya. Zach Brown wants all-stars in that car. And Kyle Busch is someone that's going to bring attraction and is going to attract the fan base over to the Indy 500. So that is an option for Kyle Busch. Another option is Ed Carpenter Racing. But this is probably a less likely option because Prado Motorsports still partner up with Ed Carpenter. Unless Ed decides to go ahead and expand to another car, because we know Ed's going to be probably running the Indy 500. He's got Connor Daly part of the team. And then, of course, he's got other drivers that are part of the team as well. That's probably not going to be a full option there, but that could be an option if he wants to go there. Then, of course, you have other teams. Of course, you have Prado Motorsports maybe, but that's all female teams, so that's probably not going to end up happening. And then you have like other organizations, IndyCar. You got really good organizations and not some not so good organizations. Who Goes Racing could be a possible option. I think that'd be a good team to go to. But of all the teams, I think the favorite would have to be Aaron McLaren SP, just because Zach Brown really wants all the superstars to be available to get behind the wheel of his cars. For me, though, I've been wanting to see Kyle Busch race Indy 500 for the last few years. It would be, I think, a great addition for the Indianapolis 500. And just imagine, you have Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, and Jimmy Johnson. You have the past, you got the present, and the future of long-term NASCAR. Jimmy Johnson is the past, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, be in the 48 car because he's more than likely going to be racing in the Indy 500 next year because Carvana is really backing. You've got the present, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, the nits and grits driver. Someone who's going to bring that really strong personality. Someone's going to have a lot of great quotes, and someone who I think will do really, really well, regardless of what vehicle you put him into. I think he'll be very, very successful in that vehicle. And then the long-term future. Now, of course, you can kind of say Kyle Larson's the present, but he's a long-term future for NASCAR. Kyle Larson also has won pretty much everything under the sun. He has gone on and basically won. He's won everything. He's won the Rolex 24, Cup Series Championship, Coke 600, All-Star Race, everything he possibly could win that he's gotten into, he's won. Every major dirt event he has won. And I think that would be really, really fun. And I think the Indy 500 going into 2023 is going to be an absolute spectacle regardless of what happens. But I cannot wait for the future for sure, and I think it'll be very exciting. If Kyle Busch does go over and run the Indy 500, I think it would be absolutely amazing to run. These guys, of course, none of them will be at Le Mans next year besides Jimmy Johnson because Le Mans 24 hours, Cup schedule is basically going to be around the same time as Le Mans. So for sure, whatever happens will be really, really exciting, but it sounds like that Kyle Busch is interested in running the Indy 500, and hopefully he does potentially have an opportunity to maybe run the Indianapolis 500 in the future. It would be very exciting for sure. So, that is here today's long NASCAR and Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links are below that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Do you think that Kyle Busch will run the 2023 Indianapolis 500 or not? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Brandon Jones driving the 9 car in 2023? And who do you think will replace him at Joe Gibbs Racing? Let me know in the comments below. Later tonight, I believe I will have the Truck Series race view from Bristol. Friday, I've got a special video that is going to be coming that will basically be talking about how Kyle Busch will perform at Richard Childress Racing. And then on Saturday, we'll have the Cup Series race view from the Bristol race, which will be the cutoff for the round of 16. Then Sunday will more than likely be driver lineup predictions, since a lot of you want that. I posted it on Twitter and basically Facebook. A lot of you said yes, some said no, but some said yes. And they've got other content that's coming on the way for the channel. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.